Alright, hi. Pipeline Welding Handbook. List of contents, introduction, joint details, joint types, electrode position angles, pipe classification, consumption of electrodes, American Society of Mechanical Engineer, EN positions, the manual metal arc process, general information, filler, metals, pipe welds, cellulosic, electrodes, basic electrode, technical data, cellulosic electrodes, technical data, welding, technique, operation, practice, general information, pipe welding, vertical, downhill, and with cellulosic electrodes, preparation and tacking, joint, joint in 5G PG positions, joint in 6G H, dash L045 positions, welding pipe vertical uphill with mixed cellulosic basic technique, preparation and tacking, joint in FG positions, joint in TG 2G PC positions, joint in 6G H dash L045 position, defects caused and remedy, automatic pipe welding, general information, filler metals, welder techniques, practices, example of WPS, comparisons between three welding methods, defects and remedies. Presentation. Everybody does countless kilometers of steel pipelines are installed with the worldwide most varied, whether civil and industrial, with a real network comparable to the system of the road networks, although not so obvious the definition. Definitely much more like intricate with area fluid that become essential for the use to comply with the technical specification filled with the necessary safety requirements. The spill material welding process, which have evolved with the sector, have been developed in recent years. The main welding process is used to install pipelines with manual welding with a coated electrode. With thanks to ease with the versatility of the still one of the most used. However, the limited cost with the increased welding productivity, particularly with long rounds, various constructors have adopted with the semi-automatic, completely automatic welding process with the solid wire and flux-coated gaseous protection. The handbook described in this message ample space for that has been dedicated to the particular with manual welding, particular reference to the operative to practice quality assessment due to the considerable still today, but not neglecting more modern productive the method is increasing use in the future. The presumption of the worker is to be able to satisfy the most demanding technique of the technician and welder, in particular would supply each for the use of the information solid operative base as regards with the process filler metals and welding equipment. Introduction. Joint details. A butt joint. All right. One one is your root gap separation between the edge of the weld at the root of the joint. Two is the root face surface of the joint prepared perpendicular with the surface of the plate. Three is the bevel surface oblique surface of the joint preparation. Four is the bevel angle, which is the bevel surface and the plane perpendicular to the plate. Five is included in the angle, the total angle between the two bevel surfaces. Six is the seam width of the effective with the width joints and the distance between the bevel plus the deep penetration width of the caulking iron seam and the groove iron are the same thickness. Seven shows the thickness of the plate. Okay, on the left you see a fillet joint. One is the throat thickness distance between the seam and the root and the surface measured with the bisector with the root angle. Two is the leg joint, or the leg length, distance between the seam of the root and the edge. Three is joint root. The point in which the bottom of the seam of the intersect with the surface of the base metal. Four is the joint edge joint punction between the seam and the surface of the base metal surface. Five is the surface joint surface external surface of the seam. Six is the fusion depth of the depth of reach with the fusion bath of the surface of the base metal. Seven is the seam width distance between the joint edges. Alright, at the top you see one is a butt joint without bevel. Two is a butt joint with a V bevel. Three is a butt joint with the X bevel. Four is the joint with an unilateral bevel. Five is a butt joint with a double unilateral bevel. Six is a butt joint with a U bevel. Seven is a U joint with a double U bevel. Eight is a butt joint with a J bevel. Nine is a butt joint with a double J bevel. And 10 is a fillet joint. And 11 is a double fillet joint. Many other variations are possible. Electrode position angles. In this handbook, the American Welding Society method is used to define the position of the angles of the electrodes as EN added. To get two angles with the indicated with the feed angle with the work of the angle. The feed angle is called to be pushed when the electrode point for the feed direction. The feed angle is given to be pulled when the electrode point for the opposite direction of the feed. The work angle is given the relation with the reference plane with the work plane. The figures illustrate the definition method of the angle of taking the clock surface face over the reference with 1 minute corresponding with the 6 degrees. Okay, so at the top you see a working plane, your angle, the feed plane angle push angle to the pulled with a wire, with the welding axis in the bead. 6 is your working plane. Then you see vertical from 12 degrees, 5 degrees, 10 degrees, 15 degrees, 35 degrees, 45 degrees, 25 to 55 degrees horizontal being at 3 o'clock, and 5, 10, 15, 30, and 35 degrees from on the other side of the horizontal. Also, working plane and symmetric axis. Also, a symmetric axis angle to be pushed and feed plane feed with the angle to be pulled. Pipe classification: non-welded pipes either according to the American National Society Institute of the B36.10 or American Petroleum Institute standards. And we're going to flip this table counterclockwise. Shows the rated size of your. This is your. Rated size outside diameter, schedule 5, 10, 50, 20, 30 standard. Rated wall thickness standard for schedule 40, 60 extra strong. Schedule 10, 100, schedule 120, 160 XX strong. Then we're going to flip this back. Alright, your prescription concern with the result of the traction bending test with the thickness is less than or equal to 25 millimeters for hydrostatic test designation with steel, alphanumeric pipe body, unwelding, welded position, unitary yielding point, root face of 10.3 m millipascals, tensile strength R to the nth, the RM index M million pascals minimum, R 10.5 divided by RM to squared. Max elongation over the the 0565 SO HFA SAWCOL tension strength RM minimum pascals, minimum SAWCOL diameter spinning with a pencil pipe and hydrostatic testing. Alright, the mechanical feature for the pipe with the greatest significance of 40 millimeters must be agreed with the value of the ratio of the unitary yielding point with tensile strength to apply with the pipe product that cannot be requested for the starting of the material. The value of the apply with the transversal withdrawn with the body of the pipe, and the longitudinal sample of the tested with the elongation value of the must be increased by 2 units. T equals prescribed pipe thickness. Alright, your outside diameter peripheral thickness indicated with the frame zone with the table, including the frame itself. Your thickness in millimeters, outside diameter millimeters, and your thickness ranging from 33.7 to 4240, and then it shows a grid. Most of it, this is all tables. Mechanical features, chemical composition, American Petroleum Institute standards, API specification, quality, mechanical operation, number to millimeter squared, yield pointing, tensile strength, chemical composition, carbon, magnesium maximum, carbonium equivalent 5L, 5L, S5LS, 5L, 5LS, 5LX, 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 5LX. Consumption of electrode pipe while the electrodes consumption within downhill vertical. Pipe diameter inches and millimeters, 6.3 or 1/4 inch electrode bead, and first millimeter, 4 millimeters, second millimeter filling with a 5 millimeter kilograms of joint. 9.5 or 1.6 inches electrode bead with is not equal to 0. First 4 millimeters, second millimeter, 5 millimeter filling millimeter, 5 millimeter kilo joint, 1/2 inch electrode bead with the non equal to 0. 4 millimeter, second millimeter, 5 millimeter kilo joint, 3/8 inch electrode bead, non equal to 0. First millimeter, second millimeter, and rooted filling with 9 millimeter bead with the first, second, and filling with the cutoff point. And your pipe diameter in inches, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 24, 28, 32, 32, 36, 40, 42, 48, 40, 40, 60 type of number. The beads, 2, 5, 3, 5, 7, 10, and 16, and it shows the different wall thicknesses. Same thing with the wall thicknesses continued. Note that the pipes are less than 6 inches in diameter. The wall thickness is up to 6.4 millimeters with a 60-10 diameter with a 2.5 millimeters, maybe for the first bead. All right, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers and electrode positions 1G 15 PA 2B 2B PC 3G 3G 3F PG equals downhill, PF equals uphill, 1F PA 45-degree angle, 2F PB 3G 3F PG equals downhill, PF equals uphill. P overhead, 4G, 5G, PG downhill, PF uphill, HLO 456G, 45-degree angle vertical. This shows some pictures of the welding of the pipeline. The manual metal arc process. Okay, we're going to read this. General information for the name welding process for the weld lines for the MMA or manual metal arc welding, manual metal arc welding method, manual welding of the coated electrode. There are many reasons for the choice. The first and most obvious, the manual electrode, with the first production invented with the suitable for the electrode electric arc weld, invented with the arc welding. However, still today, with the sophisticated material, must provide more provided with the less expensive the techniques used for the disposal of the metal arc modern metal arc welding. Remains favored with the process of the weld pipe, and easy with the capacity to reach of the position, the difficult accessibility, simplicity necessary with the generators. In fact, with being able to use the motor generators, network power is impossible always in the installation site. The fact of protecting the gas is difficult to find in certain countries, in particular third world countries, necessary in the welding of the solid core wires are not required. Although all these or others are reason for the reason for these choices. Some classes of cellulosic or basic electrodes have been specifically designed to make the requirements for the greatest seal used for the manufactured pipeline with the safety specifications laid down in the standards, but also to equip the user of the welder with the versatility products created with a specific purpose. OK pipe weld cellulosic electrodes. OK pipe weld electrodes have always been safe and the productive solution with the welding pipeline. Features high cellulosic content with electrode provides the intense good penetration in all positions. High cellulose content gives the small slag covering of the welded bead, although they easily remelted with it advisable to remove the before welding of the next bead. The thin coating combined with the penetrating are enabled the small root of the gap to be utilized with the complete the joint requires less welded metal to be deposited. The rapid solidification of the welded metal allows the truly all the position welding. Care and storage of cellulosic electrodes. The cellulosic electrodes need to be definitely amount with the moisture normally between 3% and 99%. 3% and 9% to give the satisfactory operating. Over the drive, the type of the electrode will leave the sharing of the organic material with the coating can give the unsatisfactory welded performance loss for the arc voltage welded metal porosity. Type of the electrode should not to be re-dried. Recommended current ranges for the differentiation welding position not equal to millimeters. 0 millimeters, 2.5 millimeters is 40 divided by 70 flat position A, uphill position 40 divided by 60, down position 50 divided by 90. 3.25 millimeters, 70 to 110 flat position, 60 divided by 90 uphill position, 70 to 120 downhill. 4 millimeters, 90 divided by 130 flat position, 70 divided by 110 uphill, and 90 divided by 160 up downhill. 5 uphill flat position, 160 divided by 160, 110 divided by 160 uphill, 90 divided by 130, 110 divided by 190. Welding equipment. The welding generators that can be used with the OK pipe welding have relatively high open voltage with a good dynamic character that prevents the snapping out during the welding operation. The tin pack transportation study, transport and stockage in heavy environments. The ESAB range for the consumable pipeline welding has been developed to match the steel quality with the demand of the pipeline industry. Reliability is easy to use. High protective consumable only research for the research and development around the world have made it possible only to meet the demand for today by the also force of the need for tomorrow. Cellulosic electrodes, ESAB, used for the root pass filling with the carrying of the capping of the wide range of steels used in the pipeline industry pipe production. ESAB electrode choice for the lead position. All right, pipe, steel, and grade, root and stringer, hot pass, hot fill pass is capping. The dot stands for pipe weld 610 plus. The diamond stands for pipe weld 7010, and the asterisk stands for pipe weld 8010. On the side, you see the downhill vertical position and the uphill vertical position, as in the double the bevel vertical position, uphill vertical position, root space being 1.2 to 1.66 millimeters. The root pass and the filling beads 1, 2, 3, 4, and final bead. Basic electrodes. When the pipeline strength with the strength of the higher than the X70 with the need for the preheat, the post-weld heat treatment, with the more stringent coatings for the use of the basic electrode to offer the advantage of the reach with the course, the high amount with the hydrogen, while the metal with the cellulosic electrodes with the hydrogen, the greater risk of the crack for the high strength of the material with the cup with the increase of the sensitivity of the large of hardening of the seals. And these steels, the property of the basic electrode also means the much must be impacted with the property of the low temperature disadvantage of basic electrodes, while the vertical with the low current that has to be used, resulting in low productivity that can be used to avoid the basic electrode developed especially welding pipeline vertical down position electrodes contained with iron powder in the coating, therefore they have a higher productivity with the cellulose electrodes, but since they also have the welded high currents than the cellulose electrode, productive with the 25 to 30% higher than the cellulosic electrodes, with the 45% higher for the basic electrode vertical up welding, and the root of the penetration force of the cellulose electrode, however, the most productive process that can manage with the small root opening with a high current, with the resulting of a fast progression. Basic electrode can be used with the root with the quantums line with the higher because of the less of the force arc of the procedure of the base with the welding high strength of the pipeline is therefore cellulose electrodes root path with the basic vertical down electrode with the following capping passes high quality of the basic welded metal with advantage for the pipeline exposed with the stress of the wind during route with the underground pipe with the medium and large diameter course rods of the roads on the railways when the greatest static with the dynamic stress of success with the external reach of the pipe and mating with the small diameter submitted with the high temperature strong with the pressure vibration heating plant with the refineries etc. Also normally preferred to carry out the first bead with the pipe weld filling with the basic electrode. Your American Petroleum Institute specifications 5L, 5LS, 5LS, quality and 5LX, quality suggested electrode first right, pipe route, those are all 610, and then fillings are OK 48.00 except for the 5LX X65 quality, OK 747. And 5LX X70 pipelines, OK 7047. While this is completely, alright, this shows you the pipe welding. While this is complete with the penetration, the only pipe weld can guarantee the maximum tendency with the joint due to the electrode basic coating of the electrode small. Some mechanical characteristics of particular value with the toughness strength were improved with the OK 48.00, classified with the electrode 7018.1. This means that the supply resiliency value is over to 27 J with the negative 46 degrees Celsius thanks to the purity of the contents of the components of the events with the better devolved than the formula. It can be used with the weld strength with a high value with equivalent carbonate with a high elastic limits thanks to the length of the guarantees the value of the diffusible hydrogen less than 5 millimeters or 100 grams to 100 over 100 grams. Consequently, makes the risk with the cold cracks practically non-existent with all the permitting reduction preheating the treatment of the required for the basic electrodes. In addition with these metallurgical productive aspects and the important with the structure, there's moved in with the improved the welding capacity of the excellent starting with the restarted constant regular fusion with the fine aspect of the welding seam in all positions characteristic fundamental importance for the welder and guarantee of the high productive of the vac pack boxing plastic inner box with the vac with the pack with aluminum full hermetic seal with ensure that these characteristics are over a long time allow with the product to be used without re-drying. Basic electrode basic electrodes for steel with a medium and high yield strength. The electrode type of the coating, basic OK 48, OK 43, 5370, and 7047 with the L coating is OK basic, and then you have your classification, recovery, and mechanical properties, all welding materials analysis to weight percentage for the applications, as in welding current, the direct straight polarity, AC, direct straight polar, positive or negative, direct positive, pair welding parameters. Basic electrodes with vertical down welding electrode type, the fill arc 27P, fill arc 37P, fill arc 108 MP. The classification, recovery, the mechanical parts, the all welded material analysis, weight, percentage applications, and welding current with the welding parameters. All those are direct current positive. Cellulosic electrode pipe, the electrode type of the pipe weld 6010 plus and pipe weld 7010. The coating is cellulosic. They have American classification, American welding, and the electrode recovery mechanical property of the welded metal analysis weight of the percentage application welding current DC pole positive reverse and negative and DC reverse welding parameters. Alright, pipeline weld, 80-10 and 90-10 cellulosic, and then the same thing. Welding techniques and operative practices. Okay. General information. Cellulosic electrodes suitable for the use of the vertical up, down, vertical down, up, down, and directions normally tried with the weld with the steel pipe. The fastest, therefore, must protect with the weld and with the weld downhill with the cellulosic electrodes. However, the necessary to guarantee with the particular height of the integrity of the pipe submitted with the high static dynamic strength. For example, the underground pipe with the medium and large diameter in crossing over the roads or very small, medium pipe with the subjective variations, vibrations, temperature, pressure for the technique of the mixed welding, the cellulosic pipes with the basic with the vertical upweld. Sometimes refer to the following chapters illustrate the most frequent operating practice for the use of the manual pipe welding and the frequent different techniques with adopted, starting with the preparation, closing, thorough examination, potential defects, and cover the necessary remedies. Pipe welding and vertical downhill with the cellulosic electrodes, preparation and tacking with the scope of the chapters suggested the preparation and tacking proceed with the construction and standard joint with the section with the mild steel pipe with the purpose of the developing welding procedure, welding training, with the welding procedure qualification for the electrode 2, 8, 8, and 9 for the required for the testing of the baby between the full pipe length for the otherwise agreed with between the contracting parties. Alright, you have your bevel angle, the included angle, and the root face and the root gap. Also, show the included angle at 60 plus 10 degrees or 30 plus 5 degrees as your bevel angle, and then 1.6 to 0.8 millimeters root face and the root gap at the 1.6 to 1.6 standard joint. Eliminate birth with the cause of the grinding operation welding parameters tacking electrode to E6010 not equal to 2.5 millimeters. The current 70 to 100 divided by 100 amps. Electrodes to E6010 with not equal to 3.2 millimeters with the current 100 to 120 amps. Operations. Rest one of the pipe section work to the top of the beveled edge facing to upwards. The spacing of the wire. Alright, the current alignment, the maximum alignment of 1.6 millimeter with the place of the placing for the spacing for the wire, determine the bevel of the edge for the resting of the second pipe with the section with the space for the wire, bevel the edge facing downward, align with the two sections desired, bevel welding according to the AP code with the misalignment that must not exceed 1.6 millimeters. At this point, with the tacking operation lay with a 12 millimeter to 22 millimeter long seam. Alright, you read the read tack and the penetration of the penetration excess of the weld metal at the root of 1.6 millimeter. For the tack B should be penetrated with the root in order to form the internal projection of 1.6 of the both edge of the bevel that must be fused. Reposition the spacing of the wire deposit for the second tack, and then the first tack of the second tack, the remove of the spacing wire with the root gap uneven to make with the third tack with when the gap of the is greater with such of the way with the welding shrink with the close with the distance between the edge of the must be open with the two great with the permit the third tack. First correct distance compressing of the most open side. Gap too narrow, gap too wide. One of the tacks. Or it showed the working from 120, 180 to 190 degrees. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. Place the third and fourth tacks at the right angle to the first of the second. Give the external surface of the tack in such a way that the thickness is approximately 1.6 millimeters to facilitate the start of the first bead. Parts that be removed, the approximately part to be removed at approximately 1.6 millimeter to be round the connection with the edge between the tack and the front root face of the bevel to connect the ends of the tack. To obtain quality weld with correctly joint preparation, accurately tacking the necessary faulty tacking will cover the defects of the final welding. Two joint jet and then the 5 GPGs is a joint with a position commonly used with the weld with line steel tubes and metal lurch diameter for the 8 inches or more welding parameter for the electrode 6010 not equal to 0.4 millimeter direct current positive current 120 amps with divided by 160 amps with the root with the electrode with E67010 with the GP 4.0 millimeter direct current positive of current 150 to 160 amps, hot pass electrode E7010 with a GP1 to the 5 millimeter direct current positive. The current it's 150, 160A filled over the cap of the alternative according with the type of the base of the steel with the welded substitute with the electrode E8010 GP1 or E9010G. It's important for the generator the minimum open the current voltage is 70 volts operating with the having carried with the penetration with the tacking is described in Chapter 1 with using the pliers clamp for the fix with the place with the horizontal position with the tacks placed in 3, 6, 9, and 12 position. 12 o'clock recommended to play for the tack with the smartest for the root gap at 12 o'clock. The pliers also show the tacks of the the 3, 6, 9, and 12 position of the tacks. They push the electrode into the joint. Start the arc of the joint, never on the edge of the tack towards the external surface of the pipe. Push the electrode into the joint. Advance in the regular manner. To better check with the weld pool, it may be necessary to vary the trail the angle with the 10.5, 10 divided by 15 to 0 divided by 38 degrees. Dragging, hiding, arc technique. Always keep the electrode bottom of the joint, the keyhole groove with which valve at the top of the electrode is removed, is thus formed. All right, your 12 o'clock position, 10 to 15 degrees, and then moving to the 6 o'clock position, seam in the melted metal with flow for the upward keyhole groove with the electrode tip. If blowholes form, slightly swing the electrode from one side to the other, shown in the figure. Electrode, if necessary, interrupted by the arc by running with the end of the tip of the electrode must be rapidly snapped down. The seam of the electrode that prevents slag occlusion weld. The pool remove the slag with the crater with the last of the 15 millimeter with the weld. The restart should be started with the weld with approximately 12 millimeters before the crater. Move it towards the arc length with slightly above the normal. The push the electrode from the bottom of the joint path to fill the crater. Continue welding in the normal manner. 12 millimeter start here, restarting the procedure. Also, the finished bead with a 1.6 millimeter thick weld and reinforced with the root with the show of the root penetration in the undercut with the level of the 1/16th of a millimeter. The first half of the bottom of the bead is complete with remove the slag, repeating the process for the second half of the joint. Or for the hot pass, the E7010 with the GP1, the E8010 with the GP1, with the E9010 G electrodes, depending on the class of the steel, to be welded to 4 millimeter diameter with the electrode with the 12 o'clock, maintained with the same angle to indicate with the bottom of the bead towards 6 o'clock. Use the light up with the down movement with the check with the welding pool to move the tip of the forward direction for the length of the equal the diameter electrode to allow the pool to solidify slightly to move the tip of the back of the length of the equal to half the diameter. At this point, wait until the crater is full before the moving onwards. Welding direction, arc length with the equal to the electrode and with the diameter. Show the dwell points for the down of the electrode diameter up to the half of the electrode diameter in the electrode. Maintain arc length with the electrical diameter. Do not increase the length during the movement of the arc interrupted before the bead is completed. Remove the slag of the crater. Restart with the arcing, starting with the bottom of the bead, approximately 20 millimeters in front of the second bead. Move back up the crater. And show the 12 millimeter start here. Make sure that you have filled with the crater with the restart with the welding and indicate with the previously carry out the second half of the running with the run with the same procedure. It should be done with the pulling of the technique in which the root is made for the lead is caused with the incomplete confusion with the slag inclusion tram line for the SAM edge for the higher current U with the second a hot path that does not transfer the metal with the joint with the greater with the high E freeze with the slag complete with the fusion between the weld edge with the base metal. To carry out the filling path for the third path for the starting of the position trailing with the angle with the electrode are the same with the indicate with the root and the house path for the electrode is a 5 millimeter diameter for the current side of the 150-180 A's must be U. I'm pretty sure that means amps. U. The swinging that movement of the maintaining the arc of the electrode to equip with the electrode diameter, pausing with the tip of the electrode the edge of the previous build to move with the torque of the opposite end of the described and descending by the half of the electrode diameter. So is it necessary to restart the arc with the U for the same procedure indicating the second pass after having the weld the second half of the joint completely remove the slag? Show the penulated bead of 0.8 millimeters. To fill the joint of 0.8 millimeters external piping surface to be necessary to deposit the additional path for the whole circumference of the beads should be generally 1.6 millimeter thick layer with the use of the same thickness indicated with the previous pass for the only often having the made for these layers of the joint thicker over the upper lower zone to the side zone for the making the necessary to fill with the evenly making the cap in the case for the stripper beads are laid in the same techniques illustrated previously. Zones which may need the leveling beads. 12 o'clock positions. In the 12 o'clock position. The technique used for the cap of the path is the same with the indicate with the pendulum edge of the bead, but the swing of the movement that must be wider with the dwell with the tip of the electrode with the edge of the previous bead, with the top here and last bead of the electrode. Using a Z half moon oscillation, adequate arc, the length of the travel speed with electrode speed, electrode slope. The Z oscillation shows the, and then you have your half moon oscillation. Advance at the speed with the make of the possible to name the 8/10 to 1.6 millimeter thick reference for the overlap of the approximately 1.6 millimeter at the edges, welding 1.6 millimeter of the overlap and 1.6 millimeter root weld on 1, 2, 3, and 4 passes. The API, American Petroleum Standard Institute provided the visual analysis relevant and quality assessment of the welding sample after having carried out the preparation of the tack on the piece of the mark with identification of the weld with the 5G position previously indicated the visual analysis of the welding is there carried out by the 4455. Accessibility criteria is followed with the cracks of the weld must not have present crack with the penetration joint root must be shown with the complete with the penetration fusion between the base metal with the filler metal must be prepared complete slag inclusion hollow melted zone contact with the slag must not exceed 3.2 millimeters or 152 millimeters. Well, with the gases inclusion of the section affected with the porosity cannot be longer than 1.6 millimeters. The total must not exceed the length of the 3.2 millimeters each for the 6.5 centimeters squared of the weld. The surface of the undercut for the roots must exceed with the width of the 8/10 of millimeter, depth of the 8/10 of millimeter. Total length of the must not exceed the 50.8 millimeters each for the 150 millimeter weld. With the 5% of the weld thickness of the weld is short. Weld metal is the surface of the root reinforcement. It must not exceed with the indicated dimension. Must evenly contact with the surface of the base metal with their edges must be free from undercuts. The three joint in 6G HL045. The use of the welding all mouth seal of the pipes of the 8 inches of the diameter wall thickness of the 8.2 millimeters wall. The parameters of the electrode 6010. 2.5 millimeters current 70 to 100 amps. So the electrode 6010, 3.25 millimeters current to 100 to 120 amps. The generator must have the open circuit voltage 70 volts. The operation have the carried out with the penetration tacking with the described in chapter 1 with the fixing with the paste for the use of the pliers clamps active the 45-degree horizontal plane with the tacks placed in 369 and 12 o'clock position. Place the tack with the smallest root of the gap, the 12 o'clock position. The 6G position is 45-degree position, and then you also have the carry out of the root bead, the same technique for the chapter 2, page 29. Keeping the electrode parallel to the plane with the joint with the trailing angle of 10 to 15 degrees. The electrode coating with the metals in a irregular manner with slightly move the tip of the one edge for the other than the weld move half of the joint with the same technique with the bottom of the such should penetrate the inside of the pipe not more than 1.6 millimeters in the direction 10 to 15 degree angle. The show of the feed with the side view, and then for a hot pad for the electrode 6010 electrode with the 3.25 millimeter with the diameter start with the arc with the 12 o'clock with the same with the electrode angle with the bottom of the lead with the similar movement described in the second bead in the chapter 2, page 29. Filling passes start with the 12 o'clock with the work with the angle with the 80 to 90 degrees pipe with the axis supported with the side with the top of the seam, the 10 90 degree, the 10 15 degree, and 25 degree 38 direction. Dwelling points of the feed show the and in advance 12 o'clock or into 6 o'clock or using elongated movement of the necessary executing the leveling beads. Execute the capping passing the use of the same electrode angle with the technique with the filling technique with the electrical external bead should create 1.6 millimeter thickness reinforcement penetrative beveled angle with up to 1.6 millimeter welded both halves of the joint with the remove of the slag. Surface welded metal 1.6 millimeter edge of fusion 1.6 millimeter sequence of the beads and 1 2 3 4 over the back beads. Pass the qualification step of the process for the 6G position which cover the other. The sum of the mechanical tests must be preferred. Sample the purpose of the prepared attack a piece of the prescribed chapter 1 root around the connection edge of between the tack of the shoulders of the bevel, the sharpening edge of the sharpening ends of the tack, the carry out the welding described in this chapter. Take out the care of the move, remove the largest irregularity. Use the grinder with the flexible design, fine grade. Before laying the second bead with the visual check with an indicator in chapter 2, page 29, the welded piece for the obtained. The sixth section must be previously marked identification. May be operated proceed with the pipe cutting to obtain the sixth strip of the width of 25 millimeters illustrated below. All right, your nick bead, your face bend, reverse bend, and your nick break. Okay, then moving up to the top, the coupons for the bend test must be ground with the both strip with the welded up to the consistency of the pipe without knouting with the base for the middle. You with the jig, then with the strip with the mandrel with the 3 times the pipe thickness, one with the root with the outside with the opposite one over the opposite way. The accessible standard with the satisfied with no cracks. The other defects over 3.2 millimeters to the half of the wall. Thickness if the lower than appear with the depending with the welding seam with the fusion zone each of the direction. No cracks starting with the end of the edge of the sample is smaller than 6.4 millimeters measuring each of the direction should be taken into consideration unless unaccompanied with the other defects. Carry out the nick break test with the notch with the center welding of 3.2 millimeters each solid on all sides of the answer panel. The internal external reinforcement must not be removed. Alright, shows the approximately 3.2 millimeters of the edges must be regular and parallel with 119.1 millimeters. Do not remove the welded metal. The sample must be broken with the under the tension. Sand special machine strike with the center of the hammer with the having the support with the end of the striking on the other end of the having the fixed other edge. Acceptable standards satisfied. Supposed to this each sample to show complete with the penetration fusion maximum size of the porosity must not exceed 1.6 millimeter total porosity around with the must not exceed 2%. Examine the surface slag exclusion must must not exceed 0.8 millimeters in depth, 3.2 millimeters length of the wall surface is smaller. Furthermore, there is more must be at least 12 millimeters of sound metal between one exclusion and the other. Or welding pipe with the vertical uphill with the mix with the cellulosic basic technique. The preparation and attacking of the preparation and attacking. The scope of the chapter to provide the correct preparation attack procedure for the center joint on the pipe section is 8 inches to the 203 millimeters. The joint is prepared with the making the bevel that indicated the figures, including the angled bevel angle, the root face, the root gap, and the characteristic of the bevel. Your bevel angle is 37.5. The included angle is 75 degrees. The root face is 2.4 millimeters for 3.2 millimeters. Root gap to 2.0 to 2.5 millimeters. Standard joint dimension. Move the burrs and caused by the grinding operation. Welding parameter for the attacking the electrodes E6010 with a 30.2 millimeter direct current straight positive polarity. The current 85 to 110 amp. The power source with no ammeter, but the current may be the empirical set of the proceeding of the valve with the place of 6 millimeter thick strip over the metal steel with the horizontal position. Start with the active lay down with the straight seam, which must be even with a regular ripple. The 1.6 millimeter thickness for the seam is uneven. The strong convex. The convex must be increased with the if the flat and excessive spatter for the current must be reduced. Alright, the top bead, farthest left bead shows low current, and the middle shows high current, and then an OK operation. Rest one of the pipes section on worktop with a beveled angle facing downwards. The spacing wire, the spacing wire with 3.2 millimeter diameter for the rest of the second pipe section with the spacing wire, the beveled edge facing down with all the two sections of the desired joint preparation in accordance with the Association American Mechanical Engineering Code. The misalignment must not exceed 1.6 millimeters. The correct alignment, the maximum alignment is 1.6 millimeters. Alright, at this point with attacking operation saying with a 12 to 20 millimeters long bead attack penetration weld metal at the root with a 1.6 millimeter attack of the penetration root from the bead form the bead 1.6 millimeter high inside with the pipe both side with the penetration must be viewed with the reposition the spacing wire deposit with the second tack, first tack seam, second tack seam. Remove the spacing wire if one of the span for the root with the gridded with the opposite side. Place for the third tack with the gap at the widest so that the weld shrink is even the difference if the gap at the widest point with the two with the period of the third track. First gap, correct the gap by compressing the most of the open side. Make the third and fourth tacks on the right angles at the first to the first and second. All right, too tight, too open space. For one of the first tacks, you have the 90 degree 1, 2, 3, and 4 tacking positions. To obtain the quality weld correct joint preparation, accurate tacking necessary, faulty tacking causes defects for the final welding. Or your joint, your 5 GPF. This type of the joint position you put the welded mount with the bend for the flange. Forged pieces concentrated worse than all diameter. The following example in regards to the welding of the pipe with 8 inches to 203 millimeters diameter. Welding parameters: electrode E6010, 3.2 millimeters direct current positive. The current 85 to 110 amp with the E7018, 2.5 to 3.25 millimeters direct current positive. The current with the 85 to 110 a filling electrode E7018, 3.2 millimeters direct current positive. The 110 to 140 amp. The power source must be the oscillating OCV value of at least 70 volts. The asterisk stands for the process of the mixed cellulosic basic technique. Operations have been carried out with the preparation and tacking described in Chapter 1. Pliers, your plier clamps to be fixed with a piece of the horizontal pipe position with attacking the position placed in 2, 5, and 8, 11. The 2, 5, 8, and 11 o'clock of attacking the small screw with the gap that shows that should be at 6 o'clock. This shows 2, 5, 6, 8, and 11. To carry out the root bead, start with the electrode with the 630 right angle of the both of the pipe axis. If this pipe start the arc with the joint never on the edge of the tack of the external pipe surface. Maintain the arc, double the electrode diameter, swing for the one edge for the other to and fro for the preheat the edges of the shoulder. Shows a 90-degree angle. At 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 in position 630 with the electrode angle with the electrode. 5 millimeter keyhole crater shoulder edge. The 2-3 movement to reduce the arc length with the one electrode diameter with the keyhole crater to keep the arc of the edge for the shoulders. Advantage with the light up the down swing of the movement to maintain crater with the correct dimension with the movement that must be rapid and precise for the electrode diameter of the 1 inch and 1/2 electrode diameter. When approaching attack, reduce the travel speed with a slightly increase the arc length over the crater 10 for the code with the trailing angle with the pivoting with the 5 to 10 degree angle with the reduce the force speed with the feed instead of the tending with the use for the leading the angle with the push the 5 to 10 degree with the and or increase the feed speed with the 5 to grand pull 5 to 10 to be pushed and necessary interrupt the arc between the before the seam of the finish for the keyhole crater with approximately 5 millimeters diameter rapidly pushing with the electrode point with the withdrawal is approximately 13 millimeters complete with the withdrawal electrode within the will complete with the penetration short with the restart with the electrode 12 millimeter crater wide opening the approximate 5 millimeter diameter of the keyhole crater. Remove the slag with the crater for them at least 25 millimeters. Seam with the restart that should be carried out with the start of the over the weld approximately 20 millimeters before the crater. Move it towards a slightly higher weld, the normal arc with the length of the move of the back and forth with the crater. Preheat the edge of the setting with the reset with the normal arc of length with the slag. Remove the 25 millimeter start here. Restarting position first. When first starting the bottom of the bead at the end of the remove the slag with the repeating of the operation. Second half of the joint first finish the bead should have light slightly convex surface of the being up to 1.6 millimeters slightly convex. Welded metal root with a 1.6 millimeters. At this point, the filling of the capping the passes by the executed either continue with the cellulosic electrode or using the mixing cellulosic basic technique. Alright, filling the capping the beads with the basic electrodes after the first bead you wish for the electrodes with the basic coating with the procedure to follow through. Second, the E7018 with the electrode with the 2.5 to 3.5 millimeters starting with the arc of the 630 stabilized with the 6 o'clock keeping the rather the small arc length of the angle of the showing the following figure. 5 to 10 degrees, and then your starting point, 5 to 10 degrees, 5 to 10 degrees leading. The dwelling points and the Z oscillation. Using the Z oscillation positive electrode with the joint edge of the travel speed of the dwell time, determine the result of the slow speed with excess of the dwell with the cause of the pool with the bead wide with the difficult with the control of the disaster of the speed show the well-created lack of the fusion previously seen with the various convex seam undertaking. Too slow with the V, too long dwells illuminating undercut 1 and 2, and then 1.6 millimeter from the correct with the reaching the 1.6 millimeter pipe surface of the penule ultimate bead. Does not reach the level to carry out either the E67080 2.5 to 3.5 millimeter using the same procedure with the arc is interrupted before the bead is complete. Remove the crater slag with the restart of the arc with the starting with the last bead approximately 12 millimeters from the front of the crater with the turn of the back until the crater is fully resumed normal. Travel the final. Remove the slag with the weld to end for the carry out the second half of the joint. Alright, for the cap of the bead with the E7018 electrode 3.2 millimeter with the same tech for the filling beads, but the wider swinging and movement of the passive housing with the joint edge of the overlap with the joint edge measure with approximately 1.6 millimeter thickness of the weld metal with the number for them 0.8 to 1.6 millimeter. The overlap and then the sort of the overlaps and the Hoying converter vertical and horizontal. The American Society of Mechanical Engineer standards provide with the visual analysis relevant to quality assessment of the welding sample after that or the carried out of the number of the penetration tagging the piece with the marked with the identification weld at the 5G position previously indicated the visual examination of the weld is carried out. The accessible criteria is found that the craft must not be present of the cracks. Penetration root must show with the complete with the penetration fusion between the base and the filler. Metal must appear complete. Slag inclusion cavity of the metal zone with the containing slag must not exceed 3.2 millimeters each with a 1.5 millimeter weld. Gaseous inclusion with the section effective with the porosity cannot be longer with the 1.6 millimeter. That total must not exceed the length of the 3.2 to 6.5 millimeters squared. With the weld surface of the undercuts, they may not exceed with the 8/10 of the millimeter with a depth of 8 10ths of the millimeter. Total length with the must not exceed 50.8 millimeters each with a 155 millimeters for the weld. 5% of the wall thickness is welded short. Weld metal and surface of the root reinforcement must not exceed the indicating dimension. Must be smoothly emerged in the surface of the base metal with the edge of it must be free of the undercuts. 2.1 Captain finishing beads means for the cellulosic electrode after the root bead with the pipe weld the 6010 plus for the further filling with the cap the piping can be carried out using the cellulosic electrodes. Proceed again with the vertical opposite position moving by using the 3.2 diameter with the 4 millimeter of the pipe of the diameter suitable. The welding current should be lower than the U of the root of the determinant with the pipe with the size current value of normally U of the 3.2 millimeter 60 to 100 amps, 4 millimeter 80 to 120 amps depending on the width of the bevel. The width of the welding is carried out with the Z or half moon welding. Weaving move is basic, pausing with the electrode at the joint edges. Alright, 3 joint 2BG PC with the type of the joint position with the use of the pipes and piles, a small vessel with the following example: the relay for the welding pipe with the 8 inches of diameter of the welding parameters E6010, the direct current positive, the 80, current 85 to 110 amps, E7018, 255.5 millimeter direct current positive, the 85 to 110 amps, the filling of the Electrode 7018, 3.2 millimeters direct current positive, the current 110 to 140 amps. The power source must have the OCV at least 70 volts. For the process of the mix with the cellulosic with an asterisk, operation have carried out the preparation, attacking, fixing the piece of the 2G position, vertical position. Then make the root bead with the E60 10 electrode with the 3.2 diameter, with the 60 diameter, 90-degree electrode with a working angle. Alright, the direction of the travel to 5 to 10 degree, but the electrode should be horizontal with the trailing of the angle with the 5 to 10, starting with the bead of the 50 millimeter with the tack of the keyhole, creative with the advance with the slightly, swing with the movement slightly, similar to B with the 5G position. Keep the electrode with the edge of the shoulder. Stop position 1 inch diameter, 1/2 inch diameter electrode diameter. 5 millimeter keep crater's root face. Your direction in 5 degree, 10 degree comes to undercuts. Electrode push for the too far in the joint. If the greater 10 with the widening with the crease with the trailing angle with the 5 to 10, electrode is pushed with the too far with the joint undercut with the along with the root, excessive with the penetration depends. Defects occur with the electrode is not pushed down deep enough that the joint is insufficient penetration undercut with the bevel surface of the preparation are obtained. Always fill the crater of the arc is interrupted with the bead with the complete with the crater with the restart with the distributing. Described in the previous paragraph. Not forgetting to fill the crater. The second filling bead pass must be carried out with the E7018 electrode 2.5 millimeter. The electrode must have the horizontally with the trailing of the 5 to 10 degrees. You for the perpendicularly W motion with the path of the position indicated figure with the corrective with the welding crater with the keep the arc with the shore. The spots of the bead must be flat and slightly convex with good fusion on the edges. The capping pass should be made with the E7018 electrode 3.2 diameter. The working angle varies with respect to the horizontal plane 5 degree above the bead, third bead with the 5 degree below the fifth bead. Overlap up to half of the 1.6 millimeter with the third bead with the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 bead, 1.6 welded millimeter 5 degree fifth bead. The correct working angle assured with the good fusion of the joint edge of the bed beads must overlap to half of the previous one with the same swinging the moment described with the second bead. The finished joint must have the projection machine allowance of 1.6 millimeters slightly convex with the surface of the prevent not present with the undercuts. Or the American Society of Mechanical Engineers standards provide with the visual analysis of the relevant quality assessment of the weld, the sample after having carried out the preparation of attacking the piece of the mark with the identification of the welding of the 5G position previously indicated. Visual analysis of the welding is carried out. Supplemental criteria is filed with the cracks of the weld not present, cracks of the weld not present crack. The penetration of the root, the joint root must show for the complete penetration of the fusion between the base metal with the filler metal must be appear complete. The slag inclusion of the cavity and the melted surface of the dome with the containing slag must not exceed 3.2 millimeters for 100 for each 152 millimeters of weld. The gaseous inclusion section affected with the porosity cannot be longer than 1.6 millimeters. The total must not exceed with the length of 3.2 millimeters each for the 6.5 centimeters of the welded surface. Undercuts they may not exceed with the width of the 8/10 of a millimeter, the depth of the 8/10 of a millimeter of the total length must not exceed 50.8 millimeters each for the 150 millimeter weld with the 5% with the wall, the thickness of the welded shore. Welded metal surface of the roof and forward must not exceed with the indicated dimensions, must evenly connect with the surface of the base metal, but their edges must be free with the undercuts. Alright, 4G, 4 joint with the 6G with the HL045 with the type of the joint position with the use of the weld flange fitting with the, for example, to show with the welding of the pipes 8 inches the diameter with the 6G welding position qualifies to all others. Welding diameters E6010 electrodes 3.2 millimeters direct current positive 85 to 110 amp. The electrode 718 2.5 millimeters direct current positive 85 to 110 amp. The electrode 718 3.2 millimeters direct current positive the current amp. The 140 amp. The power source of the OCV 70 volts of the asterisk for the process with the mixed cellulosic basic technique operations having carried out with the preparation, attacking, fixing, piecing the 6G position axis 45 degree. The horizontal plane of the tack must be placed in the 2, 5, and 8 11 o'clock positions. 6G position 45 degree of the carry out the root bead of the 6010 electrode with the 3.2 diameter with the start of the electrode with the 63 630 with the electrode with the plane with the joint with the right angle with the direction of the travel. The feed angle with the working angle the 90 degrees. Feed angle 0, the working angle the 90 degrees. Using the light swing with the movement, the tip of the electrode should be kept on the edge of the shoulder, but within the exertion of the exerting pressure on them, the crater tends to close with a slight trailing angle and reduce the travel speed, but the crater tends to widen the slightly leading angle to increase the travel speed. Reduce the distance between the edge of the narrow of the crater of the 5 to 10 degree trailing of the feed, with the upwards of between the high distance between the edge of the wide crater 5 degrees 10 leading moving angle of the arc interruption reinsertion procedure for the simpler with those described in chapter 2 with the page 40. Execute both half of the bead, remove the slag before laying on the second bead. The length of light convexity with a root reinforcement of 1.16 millimeters an inch. The filling pass should be carried out with the starting with the arc of the 6:30 p.m. Starting at 6 o'clock with a fairly educated with the angle of the per figure with a 70-18 electrode with a 2.5 millimeter. The filling pass should be reached with approximately 1.6 millimeter for the external surface of the pipe. The electrode angle of the 510 millimeter leading. 510 trailing, 510 leading, and start here with 510 trailing with 1 and 2 pass working angle to 90 degrees. Then carry out the capping path of the E7018 electrodes, 3.2 millimeter diameter with a 140 amp current with the bottom of the bead slightly swinging the action, filling the light perpendicular to dwell points, dwelling a little longer at the points on the highest edge. External bead with the overlap, the up half of the previous bead with the metal up to 1.6 millimeter of the bevel of the edge. Electrode angles are the same as those used for the fillings, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 at the 5 degree angle, the work of the basic angles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Electrodes E7018 on the in the middle jam diameter 3.2 millimeters upper overlap of the about up to half. Take note on the number of the beads each layer. Our defects, causes, and remedies. To find the possibility of the prevent welding defect, the operator must require familiarity with the form of the dimension of the welding pool, relation to the form of the appearance of the finished welding, seen with the filler middle with the generated with the electrode, which through the arc starts, mixing with the metal base metal. With the vertical down welding, the arc force tends to make the metal with the flow towards the rear part of the crater to form the seam with the force of the gravity 10 with the counterband with the arc with making the fusion with the pore flow in the feed direction. On the contrary with the vertical up welding, the force of the arc of the gravity push of the molten metal back into the crater to form the seam. The movement of the melted metal towards the back of the crater with the form to provide the operator with the means of the continuous quality control without the interrupting of the arc of the essential variables with which the operator interprets for the fusion path, which he must intervene with the preventing of the welding defects of the electrode diameter of the current arc of the length of the feed speed with the electrode of the position angles. One of the most important factors of the penetration of the correct penetration, which will weld complete with the cross of the joint, particularly with the small seam with the continuous preparation will diffuse at the back of the one of the common defect of the pipe welding, insufficient penetration, which consists of the discontinuity between the two edges of the bevel to do with the fact of the filler with the metal with the completely penetrate with this and the take place during the weld of the groove start with the close of the seam becomes narrow with the welding bath stays stagnant with the prevents the problem with the possible remedy with the decrease of the feed of the sleeve, reduce the electrode drive of the angle with the decrease of the temperature of the bath. Therefore, the penetration of this is not insufficient with the interrupting welding and with the increase of the current of the use of the grinder to reduce the root face. The opposite defects of excessive penetration, which is marked with the excessive reinforcement on the back of the joint with the higher than required. In the case of the during the welding of the grooves, it become too wide or the welding pool control is difficult to do due to size fluidity. The reduce of the penetration, eliminating the problem feed the speed with the increased possibility of an increased electrode driving angle that is not sufficient to interrupt the welding, reduce the current with excess for the heat supply. Many shrink with this makes the internal surface of the joint cave with the common defect with the welding overheated with the space forces of the gravity cause internal surface of the seam become the concave with the external surface of the convex. Alright, in both cases, it's necessary to produce the heat supply with the melted bath with the method of the same as those described in the previous case. Vertical welding too high with the heat input with the burn throughout the fall of the melted metal. Another cause of defects of length for the imperfect restart of the arc generally due to the low current with the insufficient preheating of the start with the connecting with the too wide with the end of the contour degrading with the towards of the craters. To prevent the type of the defect, electrode must have remove the torch for the end of the arc, on the end of the creator, removing the arc with a slight relief for the preheating of the end, but reducing the arc with light, but the thin bridge of the metal, waiting until the seam of the equal length of the existing one, with the restart of the feed of the arc of the start of the correctly start of the electrode must be turned away to the end of the creator. Also, the setting of the restart with electrodes with a low alloy, low carbon creator is the basic. The arc must be restarted upstream with the creator with the moving the torch for the other end of it should be kept with a slightly longer than normal. Starting the filling with the external B cellulosic basic electrode start switch in approximately 13 millimeter in front of the creator for the move of the unit until the filled. In this way, the previous seam is corrected preheated with another typical weld. The defects consist of the undercut. The furious display with the seam edge of the connection with the surface of the base mount with the reduced thickness for the cause of the burn. The defects is due to the excessive length of the arc, the large of the arc of the comb with the wider cuts. So these will be in the filler metal with the large laid drop with an excessive spatter with the consequent loss of the filler melter of the vertical down with the off root, often a small undercut of the edge of the external surface of the seam with the mainly due to the overhide travel of the seed. The second bead usually fits in with the cuts as the edge of the prevents lack fusion and fluid slag, inclusion the undercuts of the root inside of the pipe that are caused by the overhead short arc with the type of the electrode pushing the too far joint filler metal which is the push for the joint laid at the root. It shows good fusion and light convexity. Finally, we draw the attention to the shear with the welding defects caused with the incorrect joint preparation of the root gap of the root face for the cleaning of the joint are all the factors relative to the future quality of the finished welding, except for the distance between the edge of the tube with the small cut with the excessive penetration, shrink with the breakage on the cut with the excessive root gap, makes it necessary to increase the travel speed, otherwise with the excessive heat supply with the excessive penetration burn through the similar of the shoulders and the small arc heat makes the edge of the metal with the root of these leads for the previous situation, the distance between the edge of the excessive for the contractor is smooth out with the too large for the root, may cause sufficient penetration, lack of fusion convexity with the smooth surface with the possibility of slag inclusion in the root of the face to the too high. On the contrary, too small and the root gap of the too large for the face may cause the insufficient penetration, lack of fusion convexity of the seam surface with the possibility of slag. In the root face is too high, the arc cannot melt. Joint edge to create the groove of the metal between the edge of the insufficient penetration and insufficient adequate cleaning of the joint base of the metal material. Well, they may cause the further defects, generally gaseous inclusion, porosity of the less than 1 millimeter bore holes of the greater than 1 millimeter, presence with the oil and dirt on the surface of the weld that causes cylindrical porosity. Other cores of the porosity may be present with the humidity of the base of the metal with excessive speed, with the excessive undulation of the electrode. Finally, it's important to mention the effect of the electrode angle that is made with the temperature control of the feed angle to be pushed to be pulled with the influence of the heat supply with the arc of the force of the quantity of the material laid with the same the arc force is exerted in the same direction. Electrode is not with the center of the joint arc of the cause of the undercuts along with the edge of the welding upward with the gravity moved into the melted metal towards the lowest point of the crater in which the large undercuts that have not been filled with undercuts which may also have the curve because success of the arc length may be also curving along the edge of the joint root. So you sum up the quality of the weld. It depends on the operator's ability to open now its appropriate techniques on the capacity to control the 5 essential variables mentioned on the start with the joint preparation cleaning before the welding must be accurate. Alright, that was 52. Automatic pipe welding. General information. In decades, the largest companies specializing in pipe in the construction world level have adopted an automatic welding system and immediately defining their choice for the reward. The main reason for the conversion is to increase productivity, lower welding costs, use fewer staff. Operative welders are trained in a few weeks, low repair percentage, prefer repeatability of test joints, different of alternative choices with the other conversion taking place. One-side welding internal lineup with the clamp used for the copper backing perform the internal root pad for the welding internal lineup clamp. Both of these good productivity, low repairing rate with the respective advantages are one-side welding, low-cost equipment, the higher speed on the root pad. The first pass gives the production speed of the mainline welding phase. The internal pass can be used with the copper backing are not allowed, but can ensure better penetration on high-low conditions. Alright, fill of materials, solid wires. The ESAB of the file with the natural development over the sector that has said with now solid years to all the companies of the sector complete the range of the solid wire pipe of the range welding can cover the interior of the range of steels of the OK Auto Rad 1266, customized SFA AWS A15 5 1893 ERS 70 SX E9440 G42 2C4 G4SI1 E9440 G463 MG4S1. The OK auto ride with the 1266 copper comb coated with solid wire within the low content impurity elements downhill circumferential gas metal arc welding melting metal pile quality such as the AAPI F5L grade X52 with the grade X70 which also permits the welding high current spray arc. Also use short circuit transferring in all position shield gases the argon carbon dioxide all welded metal composition carbon 0.7%, 7/10%, silicone 8/10, and magnesium 1.4. Typical prosperity, all welded materials yielded strength 553 millipascals, tidal strength 600 millipascals, elongation 26%, sharp V, the 100J at 20 degrees Celsius. The Auto Rod 1313 classification SFA AWS A5528 ER 100 SG EN 12553 4 GM3 nickel chromium molybdenum. Copper coated low chromium moly-plated solid wire for the gas metal arc welding high tensile strength with aluminum minimum yield strength with a 2/10 of an offset with less of the 610 millipascals minimum tensile strength with a 710 millipascals suitable with the welding steel with good impact strength with lower temperatures as required. OK auto rod usually welded with the argon carbon dioxide as you do with mechanical properties given them as welding conditions stress relieving the mechanical properties decrease with about 3 millipascal cut the yield tensile strength of the typical welding composition of the carbon 10th silicon 7/10 magnesium 1.4%, chromium 6%, nickel 6%, molybdenum palladium 2/10%. Typical yield of all the metal, the yield strength is 690 millipascals, tensile strength of 170 millipascals, elongation 20%, sharp V 80 joules at 0 degrees Celsius, 50 joules at 60 degrees Celsius, negative 60 degrees Celsius. Alright, cord wires. For even more extreme applications where productivity quality of mechanical features must be guaranteed with the ESA, thanks to preferred partner relationship with the larger contract specialized with the offshore sector, has prepared a series of cord wires which permit considerable increase in productivity. The class A, the fill arc of the PZ6104 with the specification SVFA, AWSA 1518, E70C, GM H4 of the EN758 1997 T425ZMM25H medical wire providing ductility welding metal alloy with the 1% nickel with the good with the CVN toughness down to negative degrees 50 degrees Celsius to develop the application including thickness plate high restraint low temperature toughness requirements of offshore construction primary use of the copper bearings multi-layer butt fillet welds in the downhill horizontal vertical position root path without backing or welded the short arc mode with the pulse MIG operating applied with the opposite of the filling position of the joint for the using argon 8% with the carbon dioxide shield gas suitable for the semi-automatic fully automatic orbital welding machines. Typically, all welding metal composition percentages of the carbon 300 to 7%, silicone 4/10 to 7/10%, magnesium 1.2 to 1.6%, nickel 7/10 to 95%. Typical properties of all the weld and yielded strength to 400 millipascals, typical tensile yield strength 500 620 millipascals, elongation 22%, Sharpie V 54 joules at 40 degrees Celsius, 47 joules at negative 50 degrees Celsius. Alright. Alright, welding techniques, operational practice, automatic orbital welding with a mixed technique. The electrode welding, wire welding may be considered the first step toward completing automation for the process, although the large companies adopted the solution with the early 80s limited investment of the first phase and correct could work on the standard API bevel of a 30 degree angle, plus use the bevel of the machine with very expensive the device to perform with the root and hot head for the cellulosic electrodes or filling the cap in the solid cord wire. Very common that using the self shield with the cord wire with the good quality with the nigga. Gas not easy to find. Wire welding reduces the bevel. The use of the internal clamp with the copper support with definitely cheapest with the safest, more productive solution. The job that has been used for the years of the construction, see with the land pipes by the numerous companies in the sector. To have the automatic equipment to work with the welding torches move the downhills at a speed of the program by the selected speed that's determined for each of the pass. Have circumference at the end of each of the pass touch of the back of the touch of the starting position. Restart with after the welding parameters have been regulated automatically set. The operation is carried out with the beam. The two carriers of the same weld to increase the productivity advantage of the operators if they recruited among the Generic personnel can be trained in 2 weeks' time, and the number of the personnel dedicated to the welding passes can be reduced to 30%. That's not necessary for the grind and brush of the joints. Welding wire does not produce slag. Working time is completely productive. The dead time between each pass are reduced to a minimum. Alright, show the deposition rate welding, deposition per hour, electrode, cord, wire, manual, and automatic welding, deposition efficiency rate weight over the welding metal deposit weight used, electrode, cord, wire, wire, manual, electrode welding. Duty cycle ratio arc time to the work, electrode, core, wire welding, automatic welding, and then it shows example of the welding procedure specifications. ESE AB MSL Department Welding Procedure Specification Core Sheet 8-1 Nickel 1 PQ or WPS Date Sheet 1 of 3 root detail of the QG 6 degree root your base metal 1 base metal 2 P or P number of the G grounding number of the P number of the grounding number 2 the pipe wall diameter thickness of the joint type C joint detail. Alright, full joint degree angle 16 degree. The throat is the base. The plate thickness is 17 millimeters. The root opening is a 15.03. The root thickness is the 1.3 to 0.2 millimeters. This shows another welding with a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8 passes. More welding procedures. And then a welding period specification parameters. Our comparison between 3 welding methods: 36-inch pipe with a 1/4 inch thickness for the type of the bevel, the electrode, electrode positive wire copper backing, 30-degree angle with electrode, 1.5 millimeter electrode, 12-degree angle, 30-degree angle, and a 1.5 millimeter, 5 millimeter electrode wire, 12 to the root of 3.2 millimeters, 1 millimeter, and then 125.5 millimeter backing the bevel, the volume reduction, finish weld, welding procedure, first pass, second pass, filling, capping, times, arc time, efficient total time, cost man hour, €34 the electrodes at the €5 kilogram, 5 wire, €3 kilograms, 5 kilogram gas, main power, welding weight, consumable cost, total welding costs. Alright, defects and remedy. Hollow bead, the X ratio for the hollow channel inside of the roof of the bead with the maybe covered with the presence of the dirt inside of the pipe with the accurate grinding with the internal wall of the pipe near the bevel of the bad weather condition with the water, the steam of the reach of the weld, while the first of the bead is carried out with the incorrect welding of the parameters, too much for the current and too much for the gas. Remedies, check the internal cleaning with the pipe with all the circle with the manual grinding with the brushing and then sufficient with the section with at least 2 centimeters of the bevel. Bad weather condition, manual cleaning with the cloth with the internal wall of the pipe with the joint, even with the bead carrying out the first bead before the overheating section of 6 o'clock. These are most likely to convey the water and steam. Periodic check of the pellet welding parameters. Lack of penetration presented for the interruption. Perhaps the considerable length of the width of the section inside of the weld side of the inside of the bead uniform after the first of the bead for the end pipe with the sufficiently large diameter of the permanent of the internal accessibility of the visible naked eye and some case of the intact of the bevel that is visible at a welding process instantaneously repair of the fault with the corrected inside recommended to be covered with the incorrect geometrical dimension of the bevel, the incorrect welding parameter, the bad fit with excessive misalignment with the poor operator skill. Remedies: screw the bevel, check the welding parameter of the pipe rotation, always compatibility with the position. The longitudinal welds must be spaced within a certain length with the applicable shim of the internal clamp or expanded to reduce the misalignments will not dwell on the skill of the operator with the most of the exorbitant. Experts should be chosen to reserve the reverse of this first bead with the delay with the execution shop of the welding of the train. Lack of fusion. The main defect of the wire process for the X-ray is appear with the continuous short dash of the line 1 or both of the side of the joint, necessity for the position in regard to the first bead with the seam in the center of the film with the continuous assume the depth. Main code for the incorrect bevel, the dimension for the incorrect welding parameter for the operating of negligence. Remedy: the constant check of all the process for the geometrical functional parameters for the informed by the operator. Second case exists less common than the lack of the fusion called interpass for the cause of the dropping on the welding pool, the vertical section of the pipe at the 2 to 5 degree 5 p.m. The direct incorrect welding parameters that appear for the X-ray of the dark of the bevel between the 2 successful beads. Our reports that the coated electrode process of the welding pool, particularly with the external oxidation combustion for the coating of the wire process, predicted by the protective gas if introduced the arc zone, but the torch the lack of the gas of porosity. Remedies: check the good state of the maintenance of the coverage of the protection of the wine, and the check for the good state of the maintenance of the sleeve of the connection gas diffusion with the more or as recommendation of the technical remedy for the substitute gas cylinders finishing completely. Slag inclusion, defective found only when the mixed electrode wire with the technique of the present for the slab is elongated with the cracked inclusion with a certain thickness for the usually position on one side of the bevel. The cause of the bad slag with the cleaning end of the second bead, which remained within prison, does not melt in the success of the wire bead. With the sporadic case mentioned with the comprehensive of the slag inclusion due to the entrapment that is hollow created between the second bead with the half of the bevel wall and thickness section of 30 degree has not been completely filled. To be more clear, this with the start without the wire before filling the bevel section at 30 degree with the electrode. This could cause the defect of the even lack of fusion. Remedies: the thorough cleaning of the second bead. Or external defects, the undercutting with excess of the welding metal. This cannot be considered the real welding defects, which were causing the joint seal problem, but they are to be repaired due to the possibility of starting the corrosion of the fatigue, the failure to cover the facilitate subsequent operation for the coating of the installation of excessive welding materials. Alright, remember the good preparation of the joint before the execution of the finishing bead with the underlying of the bead, but it must be uniform, perfectly clean with the lead with the 1 millimeter with the pipe surface to permit the voluminous pull on the last bead with the rest smoothly created 1.4 to 1.5 millimeters seed with the widest part of the joint. At the end of the welding train, it is advisable to provide the tracture, even the small side of the manual, to prepare the defect of the external bead. And that completes the your pipeline welding handbook.